In this video, I'll show you how to freeze just part of a frame using DaVinci Resolve. It's a pretty cool effect and not too difficult to pull off. Let's get to it. I'll go over 3 examples of increasing complexity, showing you how to accomplish this effect in different situations. We'll start with an easy, near-ideal scenario. No camera movement, a fairly uniform colored background with a sharply defined contrasting subject. The clip is on the timeline in the Edit page with the playhead over it. I'll click on the Fusion tab at the bottom to go into Fusion. The first step is to select a frame. I decided beforehand to start with frame 123. I'll place the playhead on that frame by typing 123 in the Edit field under Viewer 2 and pressing Return on my keyboard. We'll freeze the dancer only, not the background, in her current position, allowing the video to carry on. To do this, we'll need a parallel stream of video. This parallel stream will be freeze-framed. The frozen subject will then be isolated from the freeze frame and merged over the main video footage. First, we need a time stretcher node. You could use a time speed node, but the advantage of using a time stretcher instead is that it has the frame number recorded in its source time parameter field. This is extremely handy if you have to go back and make adjustments, which you probably will. The time speed node doesn't have that, so you'll either have to remember it or go hunting for it. Not my ideal fun. I'll deselect all the nodes by clicking in an empty area and press Shift Spacebar to add in a time stretcher node. I'll connect the output of the media in node to the yellow input of the time stretcher node. Now we have 2 parallel streams of video. To create the freeze frame on frame 123, I'll remove the keyframe from the source time parameter in the inspector and type 123 in the Edit field. We'll isolate the subject by removing the background using a 3DKeyer. It'll create a mask which will be fed into a matte control node. With the time stretcher node selected, I'll press Shift Spacebar to add in a 3DKeyer node. I'll load it into Viewer 2 by pressing 2. To remove the background, draw a line with the mouse. Without releasing the mouse, draw a line over any areas in the background that aren't black. We need to reverse this. Uncheck Invert in the inspector. To check the quality of the mask, I'll select the alpha channel from the drop-down menu above Viewer 2. The subject should be pure black. Any areas that aren't pure black will be transparent when merged with the main footage. The subject contains some white and gray areas. We can address this by expanding the matte finesse section in the inspector and moving the clean black slider to the right until the subject is completely black. I'll add a matte control node and connect the time stretcher node to its yellow background input. Holding down the Option key, Alt key in Windows, I'll drag the output of the 3DKeyer node over the matte control node and release the mouse. From the menu, I'll select Garbage Matte. The matte control node will remove the white area, leaving only the black area, which is our subject. I'll restore the color channel in Viewer 2. If I load the matte control node into Viewer 2, we should just see the subject over a transparent background. There we are. Now we'll merge this over the main footage by connecting the output of the matte control node to the output of the media in node. That's created a merge node with media in connected to the yellow background input and matte control connected to the green foreground input. I'll load the media out node into Viewer 2 and play the clip. Cool. The freeze frame subject should not be visible until the dancer is in the right position. To fix that, we have to go back to the frame we did the freeze frame on. I'll select the time stretcher node. In the inspector, the source time field contains the frame number. I'll type that in the field underneath Viewer 2 to move to frame 123. I'll select the 3DKeyer node and click on the Settings tab in the inspector. We'll use the blend parameter to make the frozen subject invisible before frame 123. First, I'll move back to frame 122 by clicking in the node editor and pressing the left arrow key. Now I'll move the blend slider all the way to the left and keyframe the field. I'll move back to frame 123 by pressing the right arrow key, and I'll set the blend slider all the way to the right. That automatically keyframes the field. Let's play the clip. All right, that did it. Let's do another freeze. Let's do frame 207 this time. I'll deselect all the nodes and add a time stretcher node. I'll connect the media in node to the time stretcher node, creating a second parallel stream of video. Do not connect the output of the merge node to the time stretcher node. Although that will work, it'll put a lot of stress on your computer, really slowing it down. Connecting the media in node directly will keep things relatively snappy. Like before, I'll remove the keyframe from the source time field and set it to 207 this time. Again, a 3DKeyer node. I'll load it into Viewer 2. I'll draw a line with the mouse. I didn't get the background entirely black. In the inspector, I'll select the eyedropper with a plus sign. Now I'll select the remaining non-black areas in the background. I'll reverse the 3DKeyer by unchecking the invert field in the inspector. And I'll load the alpha channel to check the quality of the mask. Black is not quite pure black, so I'll expand the matte finesse section and slide the clean black slider to the right. There's a gray patch in the white part of the mask, so I'll slide the clean white slider to the right to get rid of it. I'll restore the color channel. Now a matte control node. I'll attach the 3DKeyer to its garbage matte input by holding down the Option key, Alt key in Windows. And I'll attach the output of the matte control node to the output of the merge node to merge this new freeze frame of the subject over the main footage. Now we have two merge nodes. I'll keyframe the blend parameter of the 3DKeyer so this new freeze frame is only visible from frame 207 onwards. I'll move to frame 206 and set the blend slider all the way to the left and keyframe the field. Now to frame 207. And I'll move the slider all the way to the right. I'll load media out into Viewer 2 and play the clip. Looking great, but the subject is behind all the freeze frames. Let's bring her out in front. I'll deselect all the nodes and add a 3DKeyer node. I'll attach the media in node to it. It's very important to attach the original footage and not what's coming out of a merge node. I'll load the 3DKeyer node into Viewer 2 and key out the background. You can select any frame you see fit to do this. I'll check the mask. We won't be attaching this to a matte control node's garbage matte, so we don't need to reverse the mask like before. This time the subject should be pure white and the background pure black. I'll adjust the clean white slider. It's best to keep the outline of the subject as sharp as possible, but feel free to experiment. There are no rules here. I'll restore the color channel. There's the subject with a transparent background. Perfect. I'll connect the output of the 3D keyer to the output of the second merge node. I'll load the Media Out node into Viewer 2 and play the clip. There she is out in front. Very cool. This next example is more challenging. The background is not uniform and there's camera movement, up and down and left to right panning, but the subject stands out in sharp contrast, which is good. Because there's camera movement, the first thing that needs to be done is tracking. I'll use a planar tracker. We need to select an area to track that's always in the shot. Also, the subject is walking along the shoreline, so we have to select an area that's moving at the same speed as the shoreline. This isn't an issue with this shot, since everything is moving at about the same pace. Use a frame where the area you're selecting to track is clearly visible. This will be the reference frame. I'll draw a shape around the area to track. I'll set motion type in the inspector to translation. I'll click the Set button and then click the Track to End button to start tracking. I'll click the Go button to return to the reference frame and click the Track to Start button to finish tracking. Now I'll click the Create Planar Transform button in the inspector to create a planar transform node. I'll set that aside for now and delete the planar tracker node since it's no longer needed. Let's do our first freeze frame. I'll use frame 34. Just as in the first example, we need a time stretcher node. I'll remove the keyframe from the source time parameter and set it to 34. And we'll use a 3D keyer again. I'll load it into Viewer 2. We're not going to be able to key out the entire background like we did in the first example, but that's okay. We just need to key out the background around the subject. Then we can use a polygon to mask out the rest of the frame. I'll increase the zoom level of the viewer. That looks pretty good. I'll use the eyedropper with a plus sign to key out that glow around the shoreline a bit more. Now I'll use a mask to isolate the immediate area around the subject. The 3D keyer node is selected, so I'll click the polygon icon in the Node Editor toolbar. I'll draw a shape around the subject, being careful not to include the shoreline. I'll select the 3D keyer node and uncheck the invert parameter. I'll load the alpha channel and adjust the clean black and white fields. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. That's probably good enough. I'll restore the color channel and set the zoom level to fit. I'll add a matte control node. I'll use a MultiMerge node this time. I'll insert it between the media in and out nodes and connect the matte control node to it. I'll set the blend parameter of the 3D keyer to control the visibility of the freeze frame. I'll load the media out node into Viewer 2 and play the clip from the beginning. The freeze frame is not staying put. Now you know why we needed a track. I'll place the Planar transform node between the matte control and MultiMerge nodes. That'll fix the problem. I'll grab the node while holding down Shift and release it when the pipe turns blue. Let's play the clip again from the beginning. Now the frozen subject is staying put, but it's appearing in the wrong place. I'll move back to frame 34 and insert a transform node in between the matte control and planar transform nodes. I'll increase the zoom level and use the viewer controls to position the frozen subject. You can also use the center X and Y parameters in the inspector to do this if you prefer. That looks good. I'll reset the zoom level and play the clip. That did it. Let's do another freeze frame at frame 258 this time. I'll quickly set up the nodes and see you in a second. I've added all the nodes like in the previous examples. All we need to do now is make a copy of the planar transform node and place it between the matte control and MultiMerge nodes. I'll select the planar transform node and press Command-C, Control-C in Windows to copy it. And I'll select the matte control node and press Command-V, Control-V in Windows to paste in the copy. Let's play it. The freeze frame is in the wrong place again. I'll move back to frame 258 and insert a transform node between the matte control and planar transform nodes like before. I'll position the frozen subject in the right place. Okay, I'll play it from the beginning. As before, let's put our subject out in front of the freeze frames. Again, we'll use a 3D keyer node for that. I'll load it into Viewer 2 and try to key out as much of the background as possible while mainly focusing on the subject. As long as we can get her pretty much isolated, it should be okay. I'll load the alpha channel to check the mask. The subject should be pure white. I'll use the clean white slider to ensure that. She's a bit fuzzy around the edges, so I'll use the in-out slider to sharpen the edges. I'll connect the 3D keyer to the MultiMerge node and play the clip. There's a couple of issues. What looks like mist is appearing at the base of the first frozen figure, and the second one looks like it's behind a rock. Let's take care of the mist first. I'll load the 3D keyer into Viewer 2. You can see the mist along the shoreline. I'll use the eyedropper with the plus sign to get rid of that. I'll load the Media Out node into Viewer 2 to see if that worked. The mist is gone, but the second figure still looks like it's behind the rock. I'll select the keyer node, and under the Matte Finesse section, I'll try adjusting the clean black slider. That did it. Let's play it. This last example is the most difficult scenario of all. Not only is there camera movement, but you won't be able to use a keyer to key out the background. We'll have to draw a polygon mask around her by hand. If you're using the studio version, you can try using a magic mask or a depth map instead. I'll use a regular tracker node for this example. I'll track the arrow under the parking sign. I'll click the track forward and then reverse button in the inspector to track. Let's do our freeze frame on frame 230. I'll add a DeltaKeyer node. We won't be keying out the background with it, but we'll use it along with a matte control node to superimpose the freeze frame of the subject onto the main footage, and also to control when it's visible by using its blend parameter. I'll load it into Viewer 2. I'll add a Polygon node. Now we'll just have to draw a polygon around the subject. This will not be any fun at all. I'll increase the zoom level of the viewer to make this easier. I'll start drawing the polygon. The outline of her jacket is rather fuzzy, making this more difficult. I won't be too precise since it's only a demo. It's good to zoom in, but not by too much, because then it'll take that much longer. You can make adjustments to the mask by grabbing a node with the mouse. Alright, now holding down the Option key, Alt key in Windows, drag the output of the Polygon node over the DeltaKeyer node, release the mouse, and select Garbage Matte from the menu. I'll keyframe the blend parameter so it's only visible from frame 230 onwards. I'll add a matte control node and attach the DeltaKeyer to its garbage matte input. And I'll connect the matte control node to the output of the tracker node to create a merge node. With the merge node selected, I'll right-click on the center label in the inspector and select Connect to Tracker 1, Unsteady Position. I'll load media out into Viewer 2 and play the clip. That looks good. Let's go back to frame 230 to make sure everything's in order. The freeze frame's a bit off. We'll use a transform node as in the previous example. I'll use the on-screen controls to position the freeze frame. Let's play it. All right, the freeze frame has an outline I don't like. I'll go back to a frame where you can see it. You can see the white outline on her pant leg. I'll select the Polygon node and adjust the border width parameter to take care of that. First, I'll uncheck Show View Control so I can see what I'm doing. If you overdo this, the edges will be too clean and won't look natural. Okay, there it is. That was 3 different scenarios to help guide you in carrying out this cool effect. Thank you for watching.